Greetings. This is the Proceedings podcast, and I'm Bill Hamblet, the editor-in-chief at the U.S. Naval Institute. Today is Tuesday, the 12th of August, 2025. Great to have you on board, everyone. Before we get to our guest, make sure to mark your calendar for our annual Applied History Conference on Wednesday, 15 October at the Jack C. Taylor Conference Center and broadcast live online from Annapolis. This year's conference is titled Dominance Through Disruption: The Evolving Military Advantage. It will examine key historical inflection points where disruptive military innovations gave the United States a strategic advantage while also exploring the disruptive capabilities shaping modern warfare and their potential to redefine the future of conflict. Military historian and strategist Dr. Andrew Krapinovich and the founder and CEO of Boston Dynamics, Dr. Mark Rabert, will be keynote speakers. It promises to be a great event, something that the Naval Institute and the Naval Academy do together every year in the fall. So again, 15 October, come to the Naval Academy, the Naval Institute, or join us online. More information can be found at usni.org/events. All right, my guest today is Lieutenant Colonel Tim Warren, United States Marine Corps. He's the author of an article in the August issue of Proceedings titled Making Do with Fewer Amphibs. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me, and thanks for USNI for publishing my article and having me here.
Yeah, of course. So let's, before we start talking about the article, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. What's your MOS, your background, a little bit about what you've done in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, so as an officer, I've been an aircraft maintenance officer now for about 16 years. I was a prior enlisted logistician before that. I'm currently at Naval Air Force's Atlantic as the Expeditionary Strike Group Officer. My team focuses on the Navy and Marine units assigned to the ARG-MUs and other Marine Corps units deployed throughout the world. We enable their support from the bigger naval aviation enterprise, ensure they get what they need.
Gotcha. So you're in a Navy staff now, embedded and integrated.
Yeah, fully integrated with the Navy. It's been wonderful.
Right. It's the blue-green team for you. I like it.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of our viewers are familiar with the Navy's amphibious ship readiness crisis. There's just been an ongoing maintenance problem, especially with the amphibs, especially with the older amphibs. So let's start with that problem a little bit and about how it's impacting the Marine Corps and the ability to deploy Marine expeditionary units.
Yeah, first, I thought you hinted at it a little bit. It's not lost on the Marine Corps or myself that it's not just a amphib problem. The maintenance and production rates is fleet-wide, and we understand that. But for us, it's been a really hard thing for us because we can't deploy the way we need to deploy. I'm going to paraphrase the comment a little bit from some of his comments back in May. We've been unable to maintain a consistent 3 MU deployment, which is our goal, to have an East Coast to West Coast and a Japan MU deployed at all times. And that prevents us from being a deterrent. It prevents us from responding to crises, and it really limits the options that our national leaders have when they need to put troops on the ground fast. Additionally, we have to be navally integrated. If we do go to a fight in the Pacific, naval integration is going to be key. And if we can't talk to y'all, y'all can't talk to us, it's going to be a lot more friction than we need. So getting those Marines deployed aboard naval vessels now is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and traditionally, so you referenced the 3 ARG-MUs, so amphibious ready groups. That's the Navy ships, and Marine Expeditionary Unit (MEU). That's the Marine side of it, and they come together. Marines under a colonel, the Navy ships under a commodore, a captain. Usually, you've got an LHD or an LHA, a big deck amphib. Combined with, in the last 10 years or so, an LPD-17, a San Antonio class amphibious transport dock, if I think I've got that right.
Yep.
And then an older LSD, a landing ship dock. So three ships, 3 L-class ships, if you will, oftentimes with an escort, a DDG or 2, for air defense, for protection. But Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is a Marine Air Ground Task Force,
Correct.
So you've got Marines, aviation, infantry, you've got logistics, all of that combined together in a MU. And traditionally, the Marine Corps, the Navy and the Marine Corps like to keep, as you said, one forward deployed at all time in Japan, one West Coast deployer, one MEF, I guess, right? Deployed
Yep. Correct.
and then a two MEF deployed MU on the Atlantic side. So traditionally, that's been the goal, is to keep three MUs around the world. And as you said, that gives combatant commanders a lot of flexibility. So, often the question is, where's the carrier strike group? Yes, but also where's the ARG MU, right? We want to know where the Marines are so we can go do, and that team, that blue-green team is very capable. But there's been a huge limit on the ability to develop that force, to deploy that force in the last few years because of maintenance problems on the Navy side.
Yeah, and it really came to a head back in December, actually, when the GAO article came out that I referenced in the article. The East Coast, West Coast, and Japan MUs were all coming into port at the exact same time. So there was a multi-month gap where we had no Marines deployed aboard ship, no ability to deploy rapidly. So the GAO report plus that gap, I had ideas that we'd already been thinking about in my team, and I decided to put this into a article. So here we are.
Got it. So,
yeah.
The article, you get into this idea of mini MUs, right? And so in the absence of traditional 3-ship amphibious ready groups, you recommend deploying mini MUs on smaller ships or fewer ships. So discuss that for a bit.
Yeah, it's that is kind of like the space available program that the Air Force has on their transport plans. The Navy comes to the Marine Corps Surface Force Commander, to the MEFs, saying, hey, we have this list of ships available. We have 1 or 2 LPDs, maybe like 1 big deck and an LPD, something like that. This is yours, Marine Corps. What do you want to deploy on it? And then the MEF commanders will assess the deck space they have available. They do an assessment of what is going on in the world and say, all right, we have limited deck space, but we can put Marines forward. So we'll put elements from the air combat element, elements from the logistics combat element, and elements from the ground combat element, and a small command element on the ship. Not as big, not as capable, or as forceful as they were on a full MU, but it's still Marines deployed. And if you have several mini MUs, maybe 1 from the East Coast, 1 West Coast, 1 Japan at the same time without a full MU, if a crisis arises where you need a bigger footprint, you can bring them together. You can create an ad hoc task force with the Commodore. And they may not be as proficient as the full MU who did the full 6-7 month workup prior to deployment. But they can get together, and there'll be some hiccups, but they can get the job done. It's one of those cases where something's better than nothing at this point.
Yeah, not ideal, right?
Yeah.
But it's not an on-off switch where, hey, we don't have 3 ships, so we can't deploy a MU. But it's, there are some ships available. It might be, as you mentioned, a big deck amphib and one of the LSDs, or maybe it's an LSD and an LPD, or 2 LPDs, or you even in your article mentioned that the idea of having Marines on a carrier or Marines on a DDG, right, or a littoral combat ship.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the stand and force concept that the Commandant came up with. Like for the carriers, we already have a VMFA assigned to 1 or 2 carriers at a time anyway. So if you attach a mini MU to a carrier strike group and you already have a VMFA deployed, that VMFA can switch from supporting the CAG to supporting the ARG MU when it needs to. Now you don't have to have the requirement of F-35s aboard an amphib. Now you put that deck space with F-35s and their support equipment and their Marines were towards maybe more ground combat elements, maybe some more aviation elements that you didn't have, maybe a V-22 or so. And it's allowing the Marine Corps on the ARG to support the carrier strike group and vice versa.
Got it.
And then to the destroyer piece, back to that stand-in force point I made, you can put Marines ashore. They can forward sense. They can do a lot of little things that a large element of Marines might not be able to do, but they can get in there. They can be sneaky. They can do some reconnaissance. They can sense for you. Additionally, they can do some ship-to-ship inspections, raids if need be, and other little things. And if a crisis did come up around the world, yeah, MEUs oftentimes do the humanitarian relief missions. So there's a story. If you put a Marine on a destroyer or a littoral combat ship or one of the smaller vessels, like you're not gonna have a big footprint there because there's very limited deck space in those boats already. But they can go ashore. They can establish a forward headquarters. They can assess the damage. They can start communicating with local leaders, and then maybe even open up a small landing zone so that other forces can get in with a clear area with less risk. So there's capabilities there. There's just a small footprint, even on the small boats.
Yeah, I gotcha. So a week ago, I was up at Newport. I was actually on vacation. I took my daughter to see the Naval War College and meet up with a couple of friends there. And the USS Arlington, LPD 24, which is a San Antonio class, just happened to be in port, and we went and visited the Arlington. It was empty, no Marines on board. They were just doing Navy training early in their workups phase. But man, what a giant ship that thing is! I had not been on a San Antonio class ship before. The flight deck is enormous, and the well deck and all the equipment storage areas for Marine equipment was very impressive.
Yeah, when
the tour of that ship made me want to ask this question of you, which is, given that is just one ship, obviously not big enough to hold a full MEU, but is it large enough? Could you still have a Marine Air Ground Task Force based on just one ship?
Yeah, that's the great thing about a MAGTF, is that it's tailorable. You can make it as big or small as you really need to. Now, a MEU is really about the smallest as we normally go to get the capabilities in the entire domain that the Marine Corps likes to operate in.
Yep.
But you can get a infantry company reinforced, so maybe with an artillery battery, some engineer elements, and other combat elements in there. You can get a combat logistics company attached to them. Maybe a reinforced division of aircraft, maybe a mixed section of Cobras, Hueys, maybe 1 or 2 B-22s, 53s. Like, you can tailor it down to be pretty small. And in fact, last year, when the USS Boxer had to go back into port in San Diego for maintenance, their LPD went forward across the Pacific, distributed operations with a small MAGTF aboard. And while the Boxer is at home with a big portion of the MEU, the rest of the ARG is over on the other side of the Pacific doing good things. So we've done it before. It's possible, we're capable, and it still gets Marines forward deployed.
Got it. When that happened, the Boxer went back because she had an engineering casualty, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Did they have to bring the LPD back and then reconfigure and move Marines from one ship to the other equipment, or did they just send the LPD forward with what it had on board already?
I don't know the full details right now. This is before I got to Air Force Atlantic and started tracking the ARGs and MEUs.
Yep.
But I know they ended up deploying with the 53s and with a good element of the logistics and combat arm as well.
Got it. So yeah, a mix of, as you said, a little bit of infantry, a little bit of airlift capability, yep, and some logistics on board.
The world doesn't stop because we have maintenance problems. So.
No, it does not.
Nope.
It does not. Yours is not the first article to talk about, putting Marines on, Navy ships in different configurations than that traditional 3-ship ARG plus a full MEU. We had an article in the June issue, I want to say, maybe July issue, about littoral combat ships and what was called a Leon detachment from the Marines. That was an interesting one by Lieutenant Commander Matt Hipple. Sort of hinted at this same idea, right? That you can break the Marines down into smaller units than they traditionally have done, and put them out there on ships for specific missions, and you can get some things done. You can answer some, if not all, of the requirements that forward combatant commanders have got. Have you seen other? You mentioned the Boxer. Have you seen other examples of trying, if it wasn't called a mini MEU, or of trying this sort of configuration before?
So we've had this, we had the problem of not getting Muse out in time, so we did resort to the special purpose MAGTFs of getting not Mew, but submarines forward deployed in areas where they could reach out and help when needed. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, do I know of any other actual examples of putting them on ships? So there's a good example I did come up with a couple months ago. I was doing some research about D-Day for some reason. I can't remember what it was about. And the Marine detachment on the USS Texas was actually on standby to assist the Rangers at Point du Hoc. Here's the Texas's commander or the admiral in charge of the fire support. Essentially said to the Marines, hey, if this is wrong, y'all are going ashore next. They didn't end up going ashore. There were other Marines ashore on D-Day, despite popular opinion and belief. But those Marines didn't go ashore. But they were there. They were on standby. And I think you asked me before the show about Marines doing other items besides security aboard ships. That one stands out to me. Like you had hundreds of Marines sitting there waiting to go ashore if they needed, and luckily they weren't. But it was there.
And they weren't on an L-class ship, right? They weren't on.
No, that was a battleship.
Yeah, they were on a battleship. That's a great example. Good historical example. Have you gotten any feedback on this article? Is the idea of experimenting like this or doing more of this until the Navy, L-class ship maintenance gets back to where it needs to be, where the readiness of the amphibious fleet gets back to where it needs to be? Is there resonance of this idea in the Marine Corps? Are folks up your chain of command saying, yeah, we don't like it necessarily, but we got to do this, and we're going to experiment with it more and do some more of it?
So my chain of command is all sailors. So
right, immediately your current chain.
Yeah. We're thinking about it. I'm not saying that the mini Mew itself is getting traction, but there's thoughts about it. One of those, if you look at, great example, the 22nd Mew and the Iwo Jima are just finished their COM2X exercise. I think the Navy wrote about it on their website last week. They're sending 2 LPDs out instead of an LSD.
Wow.
And it's not necessarily a less of a footprint, but the Navy and Marine Corps is taking the capability they have with surplus LPDs and they're augmenting the ARG-MU to get them out. Now, that's not a great course of action all the time. If we keep overusing the LPDs, we're going to get back into this maintenance death cycle that we're in right now,
right? Where
you have LSDs up and ready to go, but the LPDs are now hurting, and the LHDs are still not great. So we are doing that to get current Mews out. The Commandant mentioned back in May that he's running his own essay contest. I think that's the Rapid Response Essay Contest. What he's doing is he's asking Marines, hey, send my staff your ideas on what the 2035 Mew should look like. And the only caveat he put on this contest of his was that it can't be more than 3 naval vessels supporting.
Oh, okay.
So I'm reading this like, all right, if he's putting a caveat on the number of vessels that we can't go above, maybe there's a concept of going below.
Yeah.
And we might get to this. We might do 3 LPDs in the future, or maybe just 1 big deck. And we'll see. I don't know. But
yeah, so
we're all thinking about it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Mew that's deploying with 2 LPDs, no LSD, right?
Correct.
So, or how about is there an LHD or is it just 2 LPDs?
It's it's LHD. It's the Iwo Jima.
Okay.
Yep. The LHAs.
Got it.
Yep. Right now, I think both the LHAs are in Japan. The America just got back at the port, if I recall correctly. But yeah, it's LHD, Iwo Jima, and then it's gonna have 2 LPDs going on with it. That should give us almost the exact same capability that a normal Mew would have. I don't think there's any lost capabilities at all, actually.
Got it. Just instead of an LPD and an LSD, it's got 2 LPDs. Those LPDs
Correct.
are very, as I mentioned, very capable. And I got to visit the USS Arlington and saw just how large they are in terms of the capacity of the ship. I was with a former DDG CO when we visited the Arlington, and he was amazed at not having been an amphibious sailor. He kept saying, I think my whole ship would probably fit in this well.
And the LPDs are amazing. That's why we were able to extend those 53s forward deployed last year to Boxers. So we had a whole hangar deck. which the LSD just doesn't have that capability.
Right. Right.
And so you're not going to have that full secondary support maintenance that a squadron would have on a big deck. Like, so the AIMD, the intermediate level maintenance, is where you take the components off the aircraft at the
Right.
squadron level, you send them up to the AIMD or the MALs. They break the components down, they repair them, they send it back to the squadron. You're not going to have that full capability even on an LPD. That's why the big decks are so great, and you would lose that capability if you can't have one of them with you. But you can still take a small eye-level capability with you, even on the LPDs. So they're great for that.
Yeah. So when I teed up your article in my editor's page for the August issue, I said if there was a song for this article, it would be the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, you can get what you need. And I think it's just it's a great example of hey, right now, Marines are having to make lemonade, because of the maintenance problems in the amphibious fleet. And your article has some ideas for how to make lemonade, and I, good on you for that.
Yeah, and I know deck space is always an issue on all the Navy ships, and that's going to be some pushback I'm probably going to get from the Navy side. Like, hey, you're going to put Marines on a destroyer, where are they going to sleep? Well, that's a great question.
Right.
And I've been thinking through these same problems that everybody else has. But in the end of the day, we got to get Marines deployed as deterrents. We have to get them integrated with the Navy. I mean, we all hope that fight doesn't come, but if it comes, like, we got to work with y'all. You got to work with us, and we're going to get you all into the WES without having to risk the carrier strike group. Hopefully, that's our goal. And if we can't talk to you and we can't operate with you, then it's going to it's not really good for the two big naval forces to not function together.
Yeah. And rather than waiting for the perfect configuration, you just got to make do with what you got now, and do some operations, experiment with different configurations, different numbers of Marines on different classes of ships, and just get it done.
Yes, sir.
Before we sign off, any saved rounds?
I do have two. The first one is the PLA Navy. Since I brought up that potential conflict today, they have 90 amphibs. They have about 30 focused on Taiwan. They have about 40 in the South China Sea focused on the Philippines and all those islands down there. They have about 10 more in their northern region fleet. Even if half those amphibs aren't functioning at a time, that's still more than we have total. And I don't foresee us meeting that. And I'm not saying that their amphibs are as capable as our amphibs. That's pretty significant striking power. And they're focusing in one region of the world. We're all over the place right now. So we have to get Marines. We have to get them afloat. We have to get integrated with y'all. We have to be able to be at a deterrence. Like, hey, if you want to play, we'll play. And we're ready to go. But we can't just sit here and wait for the perfect storm, like you said. And secondly, whoever put the photos on my article from Proceedings did an absolutely fantastic job. The cover photo of the two Marines behind the M240 with proper sight picture and the LAV in the background over the deck. I believe it was on the Green Bay. That was fantastic. That was a great cover photo to say, hey, Marines need to be on the board of a boat. Yeah. And then you showed the FARP, which is another capability that you has to
forward area point.
You throw some Marines ashore real fast. They can set up an airfield in an hour or 2 hours, maybe a day at most. Get carrier strike group aircraft into and out of the WES, though, exposing the carrier. And then I believe you had a recon element, which goes back to that stand-in force concept. And then finally, the Marines helping with the Filipino flooding last year. I mean, something's better than nothing a lot of times. And if we can get more Marines deployed on naval vessels, it's just goodness for everybody involved. Those pictures just drove that point home for me. Yeah,
well, thanks. I'm glad you liked the pictures that we selected. We always do a lot of. We have a full-time photo editor who does a fantastic job finding us photos, and our editors work with her. Trying to make sure that we don't just grab a picture, but the best picture. to make the points that our authors are making. So thanks for sharing that with us. I'll pass along your praise to the editors, and to the photo editor. Well, Tim, this has been a great conversation, and it's a very enjoyable, interesting article. I think it makes a terrific point, which is, often, frankly, in the ilk of many proceedings articles, which is we don't have perfection. What the government bought for us isn't always the perfect piece of gear, or it's not maybe exactly what we need it to do, or it's not ready to do what we need it to do. But with a little bit of ingenuity and innovation, we can make do, and we can, sailors and Marines and Coast Guardsmen, can get the mission done. And I think that's a point that your article makes. So my guest today has been Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Tim Warren. His latest Proceedings article is in the August issue. It's titled "Making Do with Fewer Amphibs." Tim, thanks for writing for Proceedings and for being on the show today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right. Just a reminder to sign up for our Applied History Conference on the 15th of October. For more information and to register, go to usni.org/events. Hope to see you there. And if you like the show, ring the bell, subscribe, tell a friend. Until the next episode, remember, victory begins at the Naval Institute.